4-H camp is a blast.
I think 4-H camp is cool.
The most awesome experience of your life.
4-H camp is awesome and really fun.
While at camp, you'll take an educational journey participating in hands-on tracks like science, engineering, and technology, water safety, outdoor skills, nutrition, and much, much more.
I think it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had in my whole entire life.
4-H camp is life-changing.
So 4-H camp is an amazing, one-of-a-kind experience that you'll definitely want to have.
4-H camp is awesome.
Hi everyone, welcome to the first Wetland Wednesdays of Louisiana 4-H Virtual Summer Camp. I'm Catherine with the Youth Wetlands Program, and today we're going to be exploring sea level rise and subsidence with a couple of activities. Now before we begin, we're going to pause right here so that everyone can look at and answer the pre-questions in the activity. All right. Now that everyone's had a chance to look at the pre-questions, we're going to go through the materials you'll need for this activity. So you're going to need 2 clear or translucent containers like cups or jars, 1 clear translucent container about this size, a ruler that measures in centimeters, a cheesecloth and a rubber band, and if you don't have this, you can substitute it with a popsicle stick, a fork, or even a small strainer if you have one. Some water, some dirt. This can be potting soil or dirt that you collect outside. I wouldn't recommend using sand or gravel. It's not going to work well with this activity, so go for some dirt or potting soil. And some ice. Now we're going to start with our sea level rise activity. Sea level is the point where the ocean meets the land, and sea level can be affected by many things, including winds, tides, and ice melting, just to name a few. And the activity we're going to do today is going to explore how melting ice can affect sea level. So I'm going to move some of this aside. We're going to start with our 2 containers, and these containers are going to be where we house our sea ice and our land ice. So sea ice is frozen salt water, so it's going to be frozen water in the ocean, whereas land ice is frozen fresh water, such as glaciers and ice shelves. All right, so we're going to set up our sea level rise activity. So you're going to need 2 jars. You can label them sea ice and land ice like I did if you want to, but it's not necessary. So we're going to take our 2 jars and we're going to fill each one of them halfway with water. This water is going to represent our oceans. That one got a little bit more. And now for my land ice container, I need to create the land that the ice is going to sit on. So I'm going to use a piece of cheesecloth and a rubber band. And if you don't have a cheesecloth, you can use a popsicle stick, a small strainer, or even a fork and balance it along the top of your container. All right, and once you have your containers ready to go, we're going to add our ice. Now for the sea ice, we're going to add our ice directly into the water because sea ice is going to occur naturally in the water. And then for the land ice, we're going to set our ice on the land. If you're using a stick or something like that, you're going to need to carefully balance your ice on top of that stick. Now we're going to use our ruler to measure the height of the water in each container in centimeters. And we're going to record the starting height for each container on the data sheet in our activity packet. This will be our starting height, and we're going to continue to measure the water height in each container every 15 minutes for the next hour. Now we're going to put these aside, and in between those measuring times, we're going to do our subsidence activity. Subsidence is the sinking or settling and compacting of land. Subsidence can be a gradual process, or it can happen all of a sudden, like when a sinkhole appears. So this activity is going to demonstrate subsidence and what happens to the ground when subsidence occurs. So you're going to need your small, translucent or clear container, your dirt, and your ruler. I would recommend using potting soil or dirt that you find outside. I wouldn't use gravel or sand because those types of soil or rocks don't work well for this activity. Now we're going to add our dirt into this container, but we want to do it gently so that the soil doesn't get compacted and pressed together. So you can either scoop the soil in with your hand or you can pour it into the container. And I'm going to fill this until it's about 3/4 of the way full. And there's a few clumps in here and I'm just breaking them up with my hand as I scoop it in. All right, now I'm not going to shake or move this container to flatten out the top of the soil because this soil represents land, and just like the land, there's hills and valleys in our container. Now I'm going to use my ruler to measure the starting height of our soil, and because there's different levels of height in here, I'm just going to guesstimate what I think it is. So looks like it's highest on this side. I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the soil and record the height on our data sheet in the activity. Now that I have the height recorded, I'm going to use my hand to represent this subsidence process. So our hand in this is going to be the gravity exerting a downward force on the soil. We're going to push down on the soil. This is going to cause those particles to fill in the open air gaps in between all of the different soil particles and compact the soil down. So this is what happens with subsidence. Gravity pushes those soil particles down and they fill the available air pockets between the particles. So you're going to try and compact it as much as you can. Try and get all of those air pockets out. And once you do, you're going to use your ruler to measure the after height. And you should see a pretty dramatic difference. So here it dropped by about 2 centimeters. Now, don't forget to keep measuring your sea ice and land ice water height every 15 minutes. And after about 1 hour, get the final difference and record your observations in the data sheet. So, after taking our initial measurements, what did you notice? Was there a height change in the sea ice container or land ice container? Was there a bigger height change in one over the other? Record your observations down. So now that we've finished our activities and recorded our results, take this time to pause and go and answer the post questions in your activity packet. All right, so now that you've had time to answer those post questions, what do you think these activities represented? What did you notice? So when it comes to sea level rise, does sea ice or land ice have a bigger impact? Which one caused the sea level to actually rise in your activity? And what do you think that means in terms of glaciers or icebergs and things like that melting? And with our subsidence, how do you think sea level rise and subsidence relate to Louisiana? So think about it. So I'll give you a hint. Coastal Louisiana is new land. It may be thousands of years old, but in terms of the geology timescale, it's like baby land. So we have land on Earth that's over 4 billion years old, whereas coastal Louisiana is only about 7,000 years old. So that land is new and it's still settling, which means it's still sinking and subsiding. So if we have melting ice, it's causing sea level rise. So this will be our ocean and this will be our coastal land in Louisiana. So if the coastal land is sinking while the sea level is rising, that means we have more coastal land being covered by the water. And how do you think that affects Louisiana businesses and residents living in those coastal communities? Now this may seem like a big issue. and there's nothing you can do about it, but there are actually some simple actions you can take to help reduce the effect of sea level rise and subsidence on coastal communities. So sea level rise, or melting ice, is caused by global warming. So as the earth warms up, those glaciers and other land ice formations are going to melt and break off into the ocean and continue to melt, which is going to cause the sea level to rise. So some things you can do to help reduce the impact of global warming is reduce your energy use, such as turning off the lights when you're not in the room, unplugging your chargers for your phone or other appliances when you're not using them, educating others about how they can be more conscious about their energy consumption, walking instead of using cars, riding bikes instead of riding cars, and simple actions like that. Thank you for joining us. I hope you guys had fun doing this activity, and go out and help our wetlands.